This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. Thank you for watching and listening. I'm Ty Higgins. Ohio farms are known for their resilience, which also holds true for the Ohio State University Molly Caron Agricultural Center, home of Farm Science Review. That grounds, of course, damaged by an EF2 tornado in the early morning hours of February 28th. Dr. Aaron Wilson is assistant professor at CFAES and Ohio's state climatologist. He surveyed the damage at Molly Caron Ag Center. Dr. Wilson, always great to see you. Welcome back to the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ty.
You got a really firsthand view of the damage. What are some of the things you noticed as you assessed what happened at Farm Science Review?
Yeah, it's pretty extensive, obviously, damage. I know a lot of folks have probably seen as they're passing along I-70 or 40 there. It's just incredible when you're on the grounds and you're there every year, multiple times throughout the year to see those, and you just kind of take a pause and you look around and you see that there are a lot of things just that weren't untouched in some way or some fashion, from damage to some of the bends. Certainly some of the buildings completely destroyed, but many of the buildings had some damage from flying objects. One of the buildings I'm thinking of in particular, you could tell that a piece of lumber had gone all the way through and struck the inside of the other side of the building, just kind of that immense power. The winds were estimated up to 130 miles per hour with that storm. That was really over 21 miles long path, so pretty extensive, especially for February 28th. You kind of look and saw all of the damage just lined up along the fence lines. When we were walking out there along the grounds, I found a picture of a little girl that, who knows where it came from. I don't know if it's been claimed yet, but it's certainly there at the admin building of Molly Caron. So it's just really humbling. And to think that it struck, early in the morning when folks are largely asleep and unprepared, can be a really sobering experience for sure, and it was.
It was just 3 weeks later, another storm impacted another part of Ohio and the western part of the state. That was on March 14th. Why are we seeing so many of this type of weather situations in Ohio this early in the year?
Yeah, so let's break that down a little bit. We can think about just this year. We had our second warmest winter on record since 1895. We also had a situation where we had El Nino. We were coming off El Nino, which typically in Ohio Valley means drier conditions during the wintertime. And we were about average statewide, even though we had a pretty wet January period. But overall, this is the time of year where we see that transition between the cold air and the warm air masses. And certainly with those warmer conditions out there, warmer ground surface, anytime, once we started getting that southerly flow and that boundary moved up into our region, it's produced, quite a few thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms, many of them obviously turning tornadic. We've had 28 tornadoes so far, when our average is right around 19 or 20 for the state for the year. So we are well out ahead. Last year, we had 56 tornadoes for the year, another very active season. So year to year, we get these weather patterns that do give us different, a little bit more or less activity based on those conditions. There have been, from a long-term perspective or change, there's been a lot of attempts to talk about changing climate and shifts in our tornado tracks or tornado intensity, or certainly the timing of the year. I would say that in general, there's not really robust scientific confidence in that, except for maybe the southeastern United States that has seen a bit of an uptick in earlier season tornadoes. But there is some question to that. One of the things that make it difficult is we observe a lot more tornadoes today than we did 50 or 60 years ago. So there's a big observational bias there. And the other important thing to remember is that we've seen a lot of tornadoes, over 1,400 tornadoes since 1950, 38 of them with winds up to 200 miles per hour. So we certainly, while we expect the bulk of them to occur April through June, we can get tornadoes earlier in the season. It's always something to be really mindful about.
I saw a couple of comments on social media, people wondering if Tornado Alley shifted east, and
Yeah,
it's here in Ohio. So that's a conversation that many are having online for sure. You
absolutely.
mentioned that we're just now getting into the season of this type of weather, a normal season, so to speak. So it's important to talk about severe weather, practical reminders, and you've put together a list of what people in Ohio need to be thinking about as we get into the heart of this severe weather season.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are coming into the heart of it, right? So this peak activity really from April through June. But it's also important to remember in our events earlier in the season when they were both officially before spring even started, severe weather can happen any time of the year. So it's really important to keep that in mind. So with that in mind, what are some things that we can do? Whenever we have forecasts that call for the potential severe weather, have multiple means of receiving warnings, especially at night when we have these nocturnal severe weather events. Tornado sirens are not meant to be heard indoors. They just aren't. These are for outdoor only, and only if you're within earshot of the tornado siren. So we cannot rely on them. We have to rely on other forms. We all have cell phones. These alerts come out. Make sure you can receive those alerts, and of course, local media through television and radio, and have multiple means of receiving those warnings. It's very important to know the difference between tornado watches and tornado warnings. I think my favorite is you lay out all your ingredients for a taco bar, right? Like we do here in the Midwest. That's a tornado watch. All the ingredients are there. Tornado warning is that nice juicy taco that you've got prepared for you. So thinking about that, I think is a way to remember. Just remember taco watches and taco warnings for dinner, and that'll help. And it's surprising that or a challenge from a geographic position perspective. You've really got to know where you live, not just the city by name, but the county that you live in, what part of the county, and your surrounding area. And the more you're aware of your geographic location, then you're more in tune with when the warnings and watches are issued. If you're in danger. So those are, I think, a few of many different, I think, suggestions that we can think about in terms of preparing for severe weather.
Other things you recommend, including securing unstable materials. A lot of things that we kind of just take for granted of being on the farm or on our property that could very easily just fly away.
Yeah, there's a suite of different things of resources out there from different companies. I mean, we think about Nationwide Insurance has some good resources available to preparing the farm for severe weather and severe weather awareness. But yeah, securing that lumber, securing other things that can be dangerous flying debris. If on the grounds of Farm Science Review, hold trusses going into other buildings. And funny enough, a bunch of rain gauges were picked up out of the rural co-op electric building and just strewn across. Those become really dangerous flying debris. So thinking about what material you have there. It's always good to have, a whole emergency preparedness plan. That includes knowing and having a list of assets and equipment, and maybe this information is off-site in a secure location. So afterwards you can take inventory of your losses and not miss anything. It's really important. And then, having adequate insurance coverage for extreme weather, extreme, high winds or extreme heavy rainfall. Make sure that, you've got insurance coverage for buildings, all of the equipment, as most folks do, but just understanding, and working with companies that are in tune with farm businesses and the types of assets that farmers have can go a long way. So making sure you've got exit routes and emergency routes for kind of an emergency situation as well. And then make sure that you've got, sort of salvage operations and plans for debris removal, which was quite extensive if you talk to the folks there at Molly Karen from Farm Science Review. So those are just a few tips, I think, to keep in mind to build resilience to extreme weather.
I mentioned in the onset the resilience of Farm Science Review. They are planning to have in September a Farm Science Review. It may not look exactly the same, but it's going to be in the same place as they get things ready for the middle of September. And you're preparing already as well. This gives you really a platform to talk about severe weather with what happened there on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're always out there talking about weather and climate, and certainly the year's events will be the focus. So thinking about these tornadoes, probably doing a little bit of a storm storm analysis for those that geek out about weather details like I do, because I think it's important to think about. I mean, and I always say our farmers are meteorologists, right? We all farmers are in tune with temperature and severe weather. So I think we'll have that, maybe a historical look at severe weather across Ohio. Will add to our normal repertoire of talking about how do we prepare farmers for extreme weather, for increases in severe weather across the region, and in part more of this resilience building. I think is going to be a key kind of focus for this upcoming Farm Science Review.
Dr. Aaron Wilson, he's the assistant professor of the College Food and Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, and he's also Ohio's state climatologist. Always great to see you, and I know you've been awful busy with the severe weather, and hopefully that will subside as we go through the summer. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's hope. Thank you so much, Ty. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Hi, I'm Craig Pullman from CAP Farms here in southeast Van Wert County. I always call it a small to mid-size family farm cash grain operation. I'm the one here full-time. I've got a neighbor hired part-time, and my dad's still around here, I would say 6 or 7 months of the year. Otherwise, he's down snowbirding in Florida. The health benefits plan through Ohio Farm Bureau, I've priced that several different times through the years. And just the last year, my wife and I made the decision to sign up for it. We were struggling to get quite the coverage we wanted exactly through her work, which is how we've been getting our health insurance for a few years, a handful of years here. And so we priced it again, and it was really priced competitively. It was actually the same price point as her work insurance, and that was with her getting a subsidy from her work side. So was really pleased to see that.
Learn more about the Ohio Farm Bureau Health Benefits Plan at ofbhealthbenefitsplan.org.
Find out how Nationwide Agribusiness can help you grow your business. Get to know the people with the experience and knowledge to help you. Whether you are looking to protect your farm or ranch from the ground up, or need someone who understands your changing commercial ag needs. Find out how to better manage the risks of your ag business, or how quickly you can get back to business. Learn how you can protect your next with Nationwide on your side.
Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. This week across the nation, we celebrate volunteers. Volunteers are the lifeblood of Farm Bureau, and they're vital to our organization's success. Not many know that better than Paul Lyons. He's Vice President of Membership with Ohio Farm Bureau. Paul, welcome back to the podcast. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ty. Glad to be here.
So just how important are volunteers when it comes to the success of Ohio Farm Bureau?
They are so important. I mean, every day our volunteers are giving their time, their money, and their harvest, and sometimes, if you will, to care for others across this state. Just a little fact, we have a little over 1,000 or around 1,000 individuals that are involved in county boards, and that does not even include the number of people that's involved in those value-added county programs. So you can see very, very quickly how that can add up in terms of human resources for this organization, how valuable it is to us. Our volunteers are very, very important.
What are some of the ways that volunteers give their time to make this organization stronger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, our organization is strong because of our membership, and that comes with human resources. But our volunteers really almost on a daily basis. We have a concentrated time where we talk about membership, but we're a membership organization, and it's extremely important to us. But our volunteers, they talk about really the value of the organization, and they share that in their local communities all the time about, how an individual might be involved in the organization in terms of shaping policy, how they may have access to our many business solutions, if you will, whether that's some risk management tools to our partner Nationwide, or if that's feeding their need for new ideas through some of our publications and other things that we provide out. This amazing podcast that you do, Ty, is feeding their needs for new ideas. And then additionally to that, we provide and show them opportunities where they can grow personally and professionally. And the price of admission is membership. And I'm so glad that our volunteers take the time to do that. This year, we had over 500, or right around 500 people that helped us do that, to sign almost 2,500 individuals.
Look at our mission statement, working together with farmers to advance agriculture and strengthen our communities. Volunteers do a fantastic job of that. How do they use their connection with Farm Bureau to make their community stronger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it kind of goes back to some things that Murray Lincoln says, people have within their own hands to fashion their own destiny. And I already mentioned our county boards, but we have, again, almost 1,000 people that are involved in the organization that provide leadership and direction to the organization, which then leads to all of these great value-added programming, whether that's, I'll call it workforce development, but I can use an example of this FFA group that was connected to some of our group members up in the Northeast pilot area, where our group members came in and had an opportunity to find some young men and women to be able to become employees this summer. In addition to that, we're providing that farm to table story. We're giving members opportunities to network, whether you're young farmers or young members or you're more experienced members. We have risk management and education sessions on CUV, solar, oil and gas, on and on and on. Our volunteers provide that value back to the member in their local communities every day.
All of our county farm bureaus have fantastic examples of things that started right there at the county level that made a huge impact, not just right there in the state, but maybe all across the state. What are some examples that stand out to you about those volunteers that had that one idea that was really going to make a difference right there where they live?
It's a great question. And this one's really hard for me because there's been so many. But I guess I'll talk about some characteristics. So the one thing that excites me about this organization is when you have this volunteer that when they have this idea, and you can see this twinkle in their eye, if you will, or maybe you call it passion, but they know they want to do this. And then they say to the organization director, how can we make this happen? And they go to the county board and they say, how do we make this happen? And they make it happen, which seems like overnight. And one of the most memorable ones for me, it's been quite a while ago, but Dave Bushelman in Highland County, he's a volunteer fireman, but he had this passion. He wanted to create these trailers for grain entrapment equipment for emergency personnel. And it seemed like overnight, he took that idea from a twinkle in his eye or passion and turned that into reality. He went from $0 to close to $30,000 in what seemed overnight. And those are the things that excite me. And back to that quote of Murray Lincoln, people have within their own hands the tools to fashion their own destiny. I cannot think of something that describes that more. And we could come up with 100 different examples of that across this great state. That is just one of the many, many, many great things that volunteers do.
And that's proven every year, Paul, through the American Farm Bureau. Ohio Farm Bureau volunteers aren't just recognized there locally or by us as a state farm bureau, but they get national recognition for their work.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot believe, and I am so blessed to get to talk about it all the time. Last year we had, here in January, we celebrated with eight programs, but 11 counties. And consistently, we've been having close to that many year in, year out, be recognized by the American Farm Bureau for those county awards of excellence. So, and those programs are across the board, smaller counties, big counties, but I really need to add up how many that's been that we've taken to AFBF, or we've been awarded at AFBF. But if you go to AFBF and you see those volunteers, that's what I love, is walking down that row and seeing them share their story of how they developed the program, implemented the program, and most importantly, how you could take it home and do it in your own county and your state. So, so exciting to see that happen.
Well, here as we talk, of course, I mentioned it's National Volunteer Appreciation Week, and those that maybe are involved in Farm Bureau, but maybe not at the volunteer level, might be thinking it might be time to step up their game as far as their activity within our membership. What's the best way to do that, Paul?
Yeah, and we'd love to have them, but the best way to get involved is to contact your county farm bureau. If you don't have that contact information, I would encourage you to go to the Ohio Farm Bureau website, so ohiofarmbureau.org, and go to the community tab at the top of the page, and you'll find the county Farm Bureau selection there. Select that, find your county, and you can get your organization director's name and the phone number for the county office, and we'll get you started today.
Again, the website, ohiofarmbureau.org. Paul Lyons, Vice President of Membership with Ohio Farm Bureau. Happy National Volunteer Appreciation Week to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.